What's the good word, y'all? It's your boy DKB here. So I wanted to break down a trade that's been gaining some traction between the New York Jets and the Detroit Lions. Now, we brought up some trade rumors between them previously, but again, we're starting to get into training camp. Teams are going to want to start trying to put those final pieces together, but still give them enough time to actually compete for positions. And the Detroit Lions is a team that's going to be thin at the wide receiver position due to the gambling bans. But even prior to that, you take a look at that wide receiver depth chart, and I know some Detroit Lions fans maybe feel higher on it than what the outside perspective is, but there's definitely still some easy ways to improve, and this New York Jets trade is definitely one of them. So this was brought up again in this case by Pro Football Network's Dallas Robinson, but this is Corey Davis, who potentially could be on the trade block for the New York Jets. It's a bit of an ambiguous situation. We haven't seen him in OTAs, and this could be due to any number of reasons. Most likely it's the family / new childbirth reason, which is something that Robert Saleh also mentioned. But it could be the fact that the New York Jets may be looking for him to take a pay cut. We've been restructuring a lot of contracts just to open up as much cap space as possible to maneuver not only the Aaron Rodgers restructure of his contract, but also Quentin Williams in the mega deal that I'm sure he's going to pull down, whether that be on a 4 or 5 year contract. So there's a lot still left to be done, and the big selling point for the New York Jets and why they have so much leverage is that they can cut Corey Davis at any time and they'll save $10.5 million. Now, ideally, you'd like to get some kind of asset, maybe a player-for-player acquisition in this kind of case, and maybe this is why these trades are starting to creep up. So the potential trade package is a pretty modest one, and this is a deal that works again for the New York Jets. They're going to save themselves quite a bit of cap, but they'll also get some kind of return on a player that they didn't invest anything other than money in, and not a guy that's blown the roof off of any one of our NFL games he's played in so far. So the Lions will get, of course, Corey Davis. They would also get a 2024 7th round pick, and in return, they would flip the New York Jets a 2024 6th round pick. So again, kind of pennies on the dollars here, but for Joe Douglas, very solid move. He moves up around. Excuse me. He moves up around in the draft. Not only that, though, we know with his history, he loves to flip those day 3 picks for some guys that have, huge ceilings and maybe have kind of flopped at some of their previous positions. And we've seen it, with him acquiring people on the waiver wire as well. So from the Detroit Lions perspective, you take a look at their depth chart at the wide receiver position. Jameson Williams is really the selling point, but you're not going to see him for 6 games due to the gambling ban, and I think it's still up in the air if he's going to try to appeal that 6-game suspension or not. But outside of that, still, you're talking about the next 2 players at the top of the depth chart, or next 3 anyways, being Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's really the only proven and capable, consistent playmaker on that wide receiver room at the moment. And then you have Marvin Jones Jr. and Josh Reynolds as the guys who would be on the field with them in 3 wide receiver packages. So you take a look at that, you can't necessarily be excited. Both of those guys are kind of aging out, and you can argue that they're also potentially more slot guys and boundary receivers anyway. So you take a look at inserting a guy like Corey Davis, and there's going to be 2 strong selling points from the Detroit Lions perspective. For one, Corey Davis is one of the best wide receiver run blockers in the NFL. He utilizes his size, his strength very well, and just generally overwhelming his opponents playing to the whistle. So you love that aspect for the head coach over there. The second piece is it's going to be a run-oriented offense in Detroit, at least until Jameson Williams returns, and then maybe they can balance or shift the focus a bit. But Corey Davis brings big play threat potential, with the New York Jets. He averaged 15.6 yards per carry. He averaged just over 16 in this 2022 season, compared to the Tennessee Titans, where still he had a pretty solid 13.8 yards per catch numbers. So you take a look at things like him playing in play action, him being a security blanket for Jared Goff to a certain degree, being able to pull enough attention away from Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then, of course, as we mentioned, that run blocking potential for Jahmyr Gibbs and that reloaded running back room over there. So a lot of things that you would love. And again, for the Detroit Lions, they're only losing out on a 6th-round pick, and they still pick up a late day 3 in this situation. So not only do you go out there and improve your depth chart quite a bit with Corey Davis coming over, I'm sure you rework that, final year contract, or maybe you give him an extension or some sort, but you make that a cap friendly number for your team. And then the big plus that I think a lot of people wouldn't mention is that this is something that isn't going to draw away from Jameson Williams and his development. When he finally returns, you're talking about rolling out Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown in the slot, and then Corey Davis on the boundary. And you don't have to worry about him eating into Jameson's time or snap count, which in turn would mean that he's not going to go out there and get as much experience as he can rack up as early as possible, considering how much time he missed recovering from what I believe was the ACL surgery last year. So you take all that into account, and it's kind of a win-win from both sides. A little bit more of a steal, in my opinion, for the Detroit Lions. But nonetheless, it's something that works all around, which is rare in the NFL. So let me know your thoughts. If you're a Detroit Lions fan, how would you feel about Corey Davis in that room? How do you feel about your wide receiver depth chart as a whole? And from the New York Jets perspective, would you guys consider that we're selling too low on Corey Davis? And then, of course, we don't want to impact too heavily the depth of our, wide receiver room ourselves. Although at the moment, you can argue that we're anywhere between 4 and 5 players deep at that position who all can put up solid numbers. So let me know your thoughts, and I'll catch you guys again. Peace.